It's about thinking about CloudForms in a continuous integration environment. CloudForms is a lot of programming to make fully use of the automation engine. It's all Ruby code and it has a lot of dependencies, not dependencies in CloudForms, but also dependencies on your provider platform. It can be VMware, it can be Ref, it can be Azure, it can be AWS, etc. etc. So you want to have an environment where you can do testing and test every provider that is possible. I stumbled across the Red Hat Consulting GitHub, and I saw there an article about ManageIQ in the CI environment. I downloaded the Jenkins job over there, and at the moment we are thinking about implementing a system described like here. You develop on a ManageIQ or a CloudForms server. All the configuration is being pushed into Git. Jenkins is automatically fetching the data out of Git, and in a dev test, Q&A and prod environment it's pushing the new code. This is only about pushing the data from dev to test to Q&A and prod automatically. But then I was thinking, okay, but this is only pushing data around, and you need a lot more when you're doing CI testing with CloudForms. So what's needed for a complete CI environment? CloudForms can do cloud providers and virtualization providers. So when you do some testing, you also need those providers. You must have a complete infrastructure to simulate. I had some problems in the past with latency, and then CloudForms didn't act like we wanted. So in this environment I also want to design a network that has virtual routers, virtual leased lines, or lines with latency of 300, 400, 500 milliseconds, so that we can do end-to-end testing in a virtual environment, but it's reflecting the environment of our customers. For our managed service group, the multi-tenancy is also very important, because in the multi-tenancy environment you can separate all clients, and you have to design your code so that there is a piece of generic code designed by Proxy that's usable at every customer site, and only small variables and small code that's specifically needed for a customer that you must put in a separate automation domain. We are thinking about building an infrastructure based on nested virtualization on Overt. It must be running Overt and VMware in separate VMs. OpenStack, Azure, AWS, it's coming also on our mind, but seeing our infrastructure at customers, the AWS and Azure is not needed tomorrow. So we will just start with Overt, Ref and VMware, and later on we adjust it to all other cloud products. On top of that infrastructure, I want to set up a CloudForms instance, so that the CloudForms instance can be triggered to create the whole environment. If somebody has done labs at Red Hat, it's kind of like the Ravello system. There you have infrastructure that's built on virtual environments. It will be built about one central external Postgres database, and in that database there are the dev test, Q&A and prod instances, and also specifically database instances per client. So you can use a small template, which is the CloudForms server, and you only have to do a database connection with user ID and password and the API key for encryption. And then you can rather quickly deploy a new environment for that specific customer. But seeing this, you need a lot of hardware, because you are virtualize a complete virtual infrastructure. There is a product called vCSIM. It's vCenter 5.5 appliance, where there are some scripting available so that you can create only in the database a complete environment. So if you want to have 1,000 hosts with 5,000 VMs, 20 data stores, you can create that with one command, so you can simulate a very large VMware environment with a little amount of hardware. At FOSDEM I spoke to the guys of Overt, and there is a project called Lago that's only available on GitHub, and VDSM Fake, and we can use that tools to also simulate a complete ref environment. And beside that, we can also import live data from one of our customers. Then you only have to copy the database, including the API key, and then you can work on live data. As I also mentioned, network simulation is important. You see strange things when the network latency is high and when you go over routed network. So in that setup, also the networking will be adjusted so that it matches the characteristics of our customers. You also want to do a logical simulation of multiple regions, multiple zones, including all databases connect to MasterDB. So it must be built to have all these characteristics in the virtual environment. CloudForms shall be used to start and create the environments, and also when testing is done, it will shut down the environment after the testing, so it won't use any resources anymore. The main important thing is write code, and beside of writing the code, you also have to write testing if your code is functioning like you want it. So you have to write a lot. First you have to write all your automation code, and next to the automation you must write test scripts, and you can do that through the CloudForms API to trigger the automation code you just created, and then it's a good or a bad result you get out of the tests. Some information I use is from Peter McGowan. I hope I pronounced that alright. He has written a Git book of Introduction to CloudForms Automation. It's a very useful book. When you start reading that, you can see what possibilities you can do within automation and in which order you write the automation. And also the Red Hat Consulting GitHub is important. There you can find the ManageIQ CI environment, and also CFME export and import tools. So you can import and export, for example, reports, buttons, everything what you can do in CloudForms. You can export that, put it into Git, and import it onto the next environment. So this is just an idea. We haven't started building it, but in the near future it will be built so we can grow in using CloudForms. Any questions about that, or ideas that you have that I don't have?
Exporting from different environments, say from test or from development to test. You say there were some tools for it or some scripts, but what's that exactly?
Yeah, the Red Hat consulting scripts that are just Ruby rake scripts that can import and export from your CloudForms instance. It's being run on the CloudForms VMDB, and there you connect internally to the database. It fetches all data, puts into one file, a zip file or several YAML files, and that code can be used to import in your Git. And I know that Red Hat and ManageIQ are working to get the automation code out of the database so that it will be just flat files which you can import into your Git repository.
Exactly. It's also a tool to use for versioning or something.
You should use it for versioning, otherwise you're clicking around and you don't know what's happening. And that's the CI environment is that you do a normal dev test Q&A prod cycle, and with those tools you can export your code and also your service templates, your reports. You can use that for getting it into your next production. And especially in our case, because we have several customers, you can use that tooling for sharing the code between customers.
And just how does it work with having different environments in one database? It's different schemas or something?
It's just another database.
Just another database.
And you define on your ManageIQ of your CloudForms appliance, you define to which database and to which database you, which database server and which database you connect.
Alright. Okay.
Any other questions?
How do you do the testing in a CI environment to test small bits? Because it's often you run a quite complex workflow and you start something and you end and it works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
How do you drill down, or how do you
normally when you develop some code you can test it yourself, but for a complete CI life cycle you want to have that automated. And yeah, it's normal use. If code doesn't work, you don't put it into your dev kit, but you use it only locally.
But how, because that's something that I struggle with, how do you develop something locally that's based on the EVM root or
yeah.
the classes around that, and you know, that's on the appliance, but that's not in your local environment? Or do you work on a local...
You have a local CloudForms environment.
And that's where you work in
That's where you start coding, and if your code is functioning, then you put it into your Git repository, and then it's being automatically tested with all integration testing of your environment.
Okay, but you use the Rails console to interactively work?
No. At the moment we are just clicking in the CloudForms appliance, okay. And you can simulate automation, and if that is working, then you use the CFME export scripts, and then you get code which can be put into Git and put into your CI environment.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Any other questions?